So the next thing that we need to look at is, what are your fears? So many people have been hurt in relationships and they're afraid of being hurt again. So many people have sworn off relationships because they don't feel they can cope with that hurt. And so they don't want to trust anyone else because they trusted someone and they got hurt. And I want to reframe that the real issue of trust is that you okay, so let's start with the basis that most people trust too early. That I don't feel that you don't know someone for years. You can be in a relationship with someone for 7 years and then see a different side of them. So, and it's not that that side was hidden, it's just that you weren't looking for it because we idealize people. We think that people will never we might see them treat other people like that, but we don't think they'll ever treat us like that. So let's trust based on evidence. No one should inherently have your trust. And I think we need to look at it in the same way that we look at trust in money. We don't meet someone and say, okay, I trust you with all my money. We trust at a certain level. And when you look at people who get scammed out of thousands, it's because they believe something that wasn't real. So like the notorious Nigerian scammers who are going to give you millions if you just put a few thousand in their bank, they're going to return it and they're going to return it with millions. Well, let's start. How logical, how rational, what is there to trust in that? That's about greed. Is you want something that you weren't entitled to. You want something without any effort. So what we're trusting here is someone's trusting that you're so special that you were picked out of the billions of people by this Nigerian scammer millions of miles away. On what basis? So that's where your emotion and your greed has overwhelmed your logical reasoning. And people do this in relationships because they want to be seen as so special, that they want to believe that of all the people, this person sees you on this pedestal, thinks you're this magical person that no one else can ever live up to, and they only see you as perfect. And so we can't lose sight of logic by what our emotions drive us to. So there has to be some logical foundation, or otherwise what we're chasing, we've lost sight of any solid ground. So when we trust someone based on what we hope that they are, based on what we wish that they were, then what happens is we've lost the logical foundation. And so when they show their true selves and we find out that our trust was mistaken, then we get hurt. So when someone shows you evidence, that's when you trust, because that's what trust naturally is. I trust that the sun will rise tomorrow because every day of my life it's risen. I trust that I can pay money into a bank and it's safe because of the history of banking, because I trust the structures of the government that guarantee that oversee it, mean that I'm able to have that trust in the bank. I wouldn't meet a stranger and deposit thousands of pounds with them and just leave it there. I wouldn't buy a house on a handshake without legal documentation, because there's no solid basis for that trust. So trust has to have a basis. If you trust without the basis, then you should expect to be hurt and disappointed. So let's look at a little bit more that feeling of trust, where someone who's so brokenhearted is because they trusted without the basis. And when someone does that, it's because of a lack of belief in themselves. So the real fear isn't I'm going to trust in you. It's the fear that I don't trust myself to make those judgments. And this is why it's so important that we use logic to navigate our relationships. Emotion is how we judge the quality. Emotion is why we do something. But when we work out how to find the root from emotion, we get lost. So you have to understand and take responsibility that a relationship is down to you. And if that relationship ends, well, then you're not devastated because there's no one else and this is the only person. Okay, I'm hurt. I'm disappointed it didn't work out. But I know that the relationship that I want is still possible. I just have to navigate my way to it. And so when you have that trust in yourself, when you take responsibility for your results and for your journey, then you lose this fear of trust, because it's not about the other person. The other person isn't this solution to your problems. The other person is someone that you're taking equal responsibility for the relationship. It's not someone that you're entrusting your whole relationship happiness with. And if they let you down, then you don't believe it can ever happen again. So you are responsible for the quality of your relationship. You choose who you get into a relationship with, and you choose whether you stay in that relationship, and you let other people do what they do, but you navigate your way through the relationship based on what they do. You navigate based on what that means to you. And so you set the criteria of who you want, who you'll accept, and what you won't accept. Now, when you have all that basis, and when you understand that a relationship is really just a mechanism for connection, and you're in charge of the connection that you have. So you can't specify that this person is the person that I'm devoting my life to. You can commit to someone in a relationship, but there has to be a conditional element. Because if someone's going to beat you, if someone's going to lie to you, if someone's going to cheat to you, why would you stay in that relationship? So we don't. But we hold on to this idea of unconditional love. I believe that we love, but it has to be conditional. Because if someone's going to lie to you, beat you, cheat, and abuse you, and maybe even want to kill you, why would you stay in that relationship? That's just masochistic. So we have a set of criteria. And a lot of people, so this is like, we set the boundaries of what we accept, of what a relationship with us means that you have to rise to. Now, what this does is it means that your partner has to rise to the level that you accept. Because we have these expectations anyway. We have the dreams, but people don't rise to the level that you dream. They fall to the level of what's comfortable for them. So other people will behave how you accept them. And if you accept anything just with this passive aggressive hope that they'll get better, well, why would they? People will give the minimum that you'll accept. So when you set and you're quite honest about this is the level I accept, below this, I don't accept, then it means other people have to up their game if they want to stay in a relationship with you. And if they're not willing to, or they're not capable of, why are you staying in a relationship with them? So you don't trust other people, you trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, you know that you can always have the relationship. And fundamental to this belief is the idea that there is more than one. If you believe there's only one out there for you, well, of course, you have to accept whatever they do. But when you realize that that's a myth, and that's a myth that's been put in there from the fairy tale framework, then you know that it's just a case of you navigating to the right partner and the right relationship. And that is entirely under your responsibility. So this first step is you need to take responsibility. Prince Charming, the perfect princess, is not going to turn up and make everything in your relationship world perfect. You have to be responsible for you showing up as your best self, for choosing the right partner, and for building the right relationship. And if you can do those three things, you're guaranteed the relationship that you want. And just remember that the relationship is not really the goal. Connection is the goal. So let's start without fear, positive, and with clear measurements of like the key performance indicators, which are your readiness, your activity.